Now, we'll be speaking about the XRP Ledger and how it really works together in terms of the EVM and how it has, of course, been building, basically, on top of Cosmos as well. We've been, apparently, for about 100 days on the mainnet. We're going to hear all about it from no one else but Ferran Prat. Please be very, very welcome on stage. Please join us. You put your hands together. Yeah, wonderful. And yeah, we're going to hear about the sidechain of XRPL, right? Correct?
Yep.
Thank you. Looking forward.
Thank you.
Take it away.
Well, hello everyone. It's great to be here for my second year at Cosmoverse. I've been involved with the Cosmos ecosystem indirectly for about 4 years when we started researching an EVM solution for Ripple, when we started building what is right now the XRPL EVM. But for the last 2 years, actually, is when I started discovering this ecosystem, when I started discovering this tech more in detail. And last year, I was here at Cosmoverse speaking on the XRPL EVM, what we wanted to launch. By the time, it was just a testnet. And that was all our involvement with the Cosmos ecosystem. Now, 1 year later, I'm very happy to come back, having the XRPL EVM launch on Mainnet, which may seem trivial, but it's something that it's very complex, and at the same time, we have much more confidence. We moved from EVMOS to Cosmos EVM, and now we are in a path of guarantees and security that helps us empower even more this stack with large institutions, as Mac announced it earlier. We are doing some partnerships with CBDCs, with large institutions, and I hope next year I can come back with at least a similar progress or even more institutions on chain being live. So I would like to have time to talk a little bit of all these amazing developments we are doing. Unfortunately, I have 15 minutes, so I'll stick with what we have on Mainnet, with the XRPL EVM, and I hope this is very insightful for anyone that's interested in XRP and the XRP Ledger ecosystem, but also for anyone else that has the intention or is working on launching a production chain based on Cosmos EVM. This is some learnings we got on the first 3 months that I think that can be very valuable. So in order to touch on all these topics, I will briefly talk about what's the XRPL EVM, just in case some of you guys don't know what is this chain and what pieces we've put together, and then we will evaluate how the chain is going. And how we are going to evaluate that, it's by looking at the network health. How is the network going? There's downtimes, it's everything working fine. How is the governance? Do we have any problem? How we are going to push forward this ecosystem? And finally, how was the adoption? It was the infrastructure, it was the tech ready, it was people interested on using this sidechain, it was just a research project, or we really fit a market demand, right? And what's next, I think it'd also be interested for you guys. So let's start with what's the XRPL EVM. Very simply, the XRPL EVM sidechain. It's a sovereign layer 1 chain built with Cosmos EVM that pretends to be a scaling solution for the XRPL mainnet. The XRPL mainnet was launched in 2012, so way before Ethereum launched, so there is no programmability, at least with smart contracts. Without programmability, it's very difficult to have also interoperability. And although it's very efficient for payments and for some pre-built features, there is a clear need for programmability, for example, when it comes to DeFi or for institutional adoption, right? So we are finding ways with Ripple to bring smart contracts without compromising the security, without compromising the efficiency of the XRP Ledger. And we figured it out that pouring an EVM on top of the XRP Ledger itself was kind of a complex thing, so a good way to test the waters and see if there was really this demand without compromising the layer 1 was to launch a sidechain, a layer 2. This sidechain had to be EVM compatible. This sidechain had to use XRP as a native currency, and it had to have a very similar consensus mechanism that secures XRP as we had on the XRP Ledger. So we've done some research. We didn't know anyone at Cosmos at all, and we selected and we find out that the EVMOS, I think at the time was even Ethermin, was the best solution for building a new EVM. So we built that. We connected this chain with the XRPL mainnet via Axelar. So essentially, the bridge of Axelar is on the genesis block of the EVM sidechain in a way that the native currency of the EVM sidechain is the XRP directly bridged mint and burn from the XRP Ledger. So it generates exactly the same liquidity, the value, the features, and everything else from the token. But this node now has EVM compatibility. It has also IBC programmability, which was another surprise that we didn't focus on, but it's essentially one of the best features we have right now. And for the consensus part, I think also Barry talked about this earlier, we wanted to have a proof of authority, a very similar model that was powering XRP on the XRP Ledger since day one, so there wasn't any proof of authority built on Cosmos DK, and we built our model. It's open source. It has been audited at least 3 or 4 times, so you guys can reuse it if you find it interesting. It's our first major contribution, I will say, to also the Cosmos DK stack. So with all these features in mind, essentially what we plugged and played there here, and if you guys want to replicate, I think it's a pretty good stack. It's this one, essentially the Cosmos EVM as a node. Right now we are moving it to the 0.4.1, like the previous release that was there. On top of that, we used Block Scout for exploring the EVM part, very reliable, and they are proving themselves one of the best solutions right now. For the Cosmos layer, we are maintaining also our own version of Big Dipper. We are essentially using this layer for the governance part, although there's other Cosmos explorers for seeing what's happening on the Cosmos layer, IBC, etc. Most of the DeFi activity is happening on the EVM. So we are maintaining this version of Big Dipper. You guys can also use it because it was largely maintained for a year ago or at least, and now it's pretty in good shape. And then we signed a few partners for the basic infrastructure. We had GoldSky as an indexer. We had Band Protocol as a data oracle. And we signed it with Grove and recently also with QuickNode as RPC providers. So with that infrastructure in place, we had a very good setup. And this is something that takes a while, but once you have everything, it's very reusable. So now we can set up Cosmos EVM chains in a very straightforward manner with setups that covers all the infrastructure needed very quickly. And then we've also done integrations or support essentially with most of the wallets. I think all the Cosmos, the top Cosmos wallets are supporting the XRPL EVM, but most of them, you don't even need them. You can just add custom chains. I think Kepler allows that. And the same way happens with MetaMask for the EVM layer. You can just add your custom network. So you can spin up new chains, private, public, and use all this tech stack in a fairly fast way. It took us a few years to get there, but now the deployments are very fast. So this is essentially what we've put in place, and the challenge was, okay, we had the testnet, everything was working fairly good, but let's move it to mainnet, right? And we were not doing another mainnet. We were doing a mainnet for Ripple, which is a top 3 asset. It is, in many countries, the largest traded asset. It's clear, vector or honeypot of attack, right? So we had also to prove that this tech stack that we had on testnet can survive and can be operating on mainnet. And it was the first chain we launched. Obviously, we work together with Ripple engineers, but this is something that has to be proven, right? So we started this month, and all I can say is that the tech has worked really good in terms of network health. Since we launched about 4 months ago, everything has been up in production without any major problem, all services above 99%. So I think that's a pretty good way to start. A lot of things could go wrong. We didn't have many issues. One thing or learnings I can share is maybe the public RPCs, when we set up all these IBC relayers to connect to different chains, we had most of the public RPCs of the other chains were not that reliable. But these guys from Crypto Crew, shout out to them, they set up private infrastructure for these chains, and now it seems to be addressed. So that's the only thing I would like to maybe highlight as something that it was different from our initial expectations, but apart from that, safe contracts were deployed for large treasuries, no problem, full compatibility. Quick Node, Grove, RPCs are there for scaling options. We had also Range, the explorer that helped us to explore also or get metrics from IBC, from Cosmos, and from EVM layers. And the only issue we had was a misconfiguration on our side that some kind of transactions were a little bit higher in gas, 400 XRPs. We passed an expedited proposal in less than 24 hours. This was solved. And that's it. I think like sometimes like no news, good news, right? It's what you want to have in production. And when it comes to the XRPL EVM, as far as the tech, this is very reliable. And I hope also for all you guys that are planning to build this gives some guarantees that the tech and the system looks to be ready and looks to be very reliable to build important chains and assets on top of it. So in terms of governance, in our case, we've built this proof of authority. This was also a test of, although the XRP Ledger has some kind of proof of authority, but it's based with unique node lists, and it's a little bit different. So what we've done here, which is also a good recommendation, and shout out to Kintsugi here, they recommended doing an advisory board. Luckily enough, we could have the best on this advisory board. So from the Cosmos side, we get Informal Systems, Kintsugi, Cosmos Labs. From the Ripple side, we got Ripple XRPL Commons, which is part of the foundation, and our team. And with all these players, we could set up the Genesis block, we could operate the basic things, and then slowly get adding more validators. We take over DevNet once this was launched on Mainnet, and testnet. We have a topology of maximum 32 validators, which is very similar to the XRPL mainnet. It's proof of authority, much more manageable, and obviously it's the first days and it's few validators, but this helps making these things very reliable because we've been able to put expedited proposals without previous notice and pass it with 88, 90% participation. So the network is in very good health, and I think from a governance perspective, it's going to continue to be in very good health. We've passed 10 proposals since mainnet launch, so I mean, in 3 months, 10 proposals is essentially almost 1 proposal per week. So there's a lot of activity and development going on. And the chain is generating XRPs in transaction fees, which is the compensation for validators. We have a few slots still available, so if some of you guys want to participate on that, just let us know. And when it comes to adoption, that's another big news and important topic here, is that we launched this chain organically, although like many other chains that launch with, tens or hundreds of partners sign it and big funding and incentives and everything else. With Ripple, we wanted to launch organically, see that the tech was ready, validate the hypothesis that there was appetite for smart contracts with XRP, that was appetite for XRP outside the XRP Ledger when it comes to trading, when it comes to DeFi. It was obviously a very obvious hypothesis, because obviously the XRP Ledger on centralized exchange is one of the largest assets, and obviously the same people may be interested in having XRP for DeFi, but it's something that has to be proven itself. So we launched the chain 3 months ago. Still no one received any grant, any support. It's just pouring the chain in production, making an announcement on Twitter and see what's happening. And I think for having organic launch, numbers speak by themselves, like more than 55 applications launched, thousands of smart contracts. Now the part of the XRPL Foundation runs there as a DAO. We've seen a lot of DeFi products for XRP, essentially lending and real-world assets to provide yield on top of XRP launching there. And the network has now around 100 million in assets, again, organically, which I think is a pretty decent number, and also with the short time that people had to integrate. We've moving now a volume of about 150 million monthly is assets in and out, and in the first 3 months, more than 360 million was moved there. So I think this proven the point. I think we are ready to scale right now, and we are very confident also with the tech. For instance, the winner apps essentially has been XRP yield. Obviously, XRP was an isolated asset without any staking, so it was essentially impossible to get yield out of it. The guys from Axelar and Midas launched this MXRP. It's more than 30 million, and the guys from Strove, they launched a lending protocol. So yield options for XRP. It's a very interesting market. It's still unexploited totally. XRP, I think it's $100+ billion. The market for yield on XRP, I think it's about 200 million just right now. So there's like 99% of people that has XRP that doesn't make yield on top of it, and now we have the tooling to do that. This is the ecosystem overview right now. The apps can be here, the apps cannot be listed. But essentially, what I want to finish this talk is that we are getting closer. We launched, when we built all this as a research experiment with Ripple, as a proof of concept, as an hypothesis to validate. Last year, we had a lot of uncertainty with EVMOS. We didn't know where it was going, who was going to maintain the tech. I think right now, the team at Cosmos Labs, and I want to give them a shout out, they are doing an amazing job of putting all this tech together, on maintaining and advancing that, and Ripple is much more confident. They are pouring now a large funding and a large strategy to grow the EVM sidechain. They are very confident in the tech, and institutions like Peersyst that we've worked with central banks, we've worked with large multinationals that requires a huge commitment on our side, and we were not that confident to launch chains with unknown teams or without this certainty. Right now, and Mac announced it earlier, we are doing these partnerships. We are pouring these technologies to central banks, to large institutions, in the same way we did with Ripple, and also migrating and making sure we are fully aligned with the ecosystem. So I hope, and I think next year I will be back again here. I hope I can bring much better news, but that was the progress we've done on the last year. And yeah, it's exciting to be here. Thank you guys, and hope you enjoy the conference.